Hello, I'm Rachel Shankles from Arkansas Alpha Epsilon Chapter, and right now I'm the International World Understanding Committee Chairman. In my school days, I was a school librarian for many, many years, and I retired after 42 years in education, and now I work at a university teaching library media graduate students. And I'm here today to talk to you about Google, the good and the bad. And I'll flash my email on the screen in a few minutes so that you can contact me if you need to ask questions. We're going to talk about Google, which is a search engine that is one of the good ones. It is a browser as well as a search engine, and it's very popular. It's great if it's used correctly. You know that you've heard people say, I Googled it. Well, we're going to talk about that today. There are other search engines like Firefox, Windows Edge, Bing, MSN. There are tons of search engines that you can use, and these are just a few. But I have found in my career that most of the programs I use work best by using Google and Chrome. Do you find yourself Googling everything on your cell phone? I do, whether it's what's on sale at Hobby Lobby, or how to spell a certain word, or how to find a certain store in a certain city. I use my cell phone to Google tons of information every single day. Well, ask yourself this question: is that a good source of information? First, when you get that list of results, when you do a search for something, like sometimes I'm searching for a certain pattern of dishes because I'm a dish collector, and I might be searching for a Linux pattern that I type into the search bar. Well, when I get my list of results, there are tons of results. And one thing you need to know about Google is that it sells the top spots on that results list. You'll notice in front of a lot of them, it starts with the word ad. That means the top 7 or 10 of those results are advertisements, not necessarily the best resource to give you the best answer. So remember that you have to go down the list past number 7 usually and look for legitimate information. For instance, find what you're looking for in the address, the URL. If you're looking for Hobby Lobby, find www.hobbylobby.com. The first ads might take you to similar sites, but you want to go straight to Hobby Lobby. So look for your search words in the website address. If you deal with students, you're still a teacher. There are databases that are more appropriate for searching for legitimate information than letting your students go directly to Google. They will always want to Google it. They may not know that the first 7 to 10 items are advertisements. they might use the first result to get their information, and it might not be legitimate information. So you need to teach them to look through the list and not take the ones for granted as legitimate that have the word ad in front of them or that show up in the top slots of their results. And one of those top 10 or 11 results will always be Wikipedia. Have you heard of Wikipedia? Wikipedia is an encyclopedia that is put together by anyone who wants to enter information into it. Like today, I could sit down and go to wikipedia.com and I could write an article about Alpha Delta Kappa being an organization of male teachers and using misinformation, and Wikipedia would accept it as a legitimate article. And they would say, give us a few days because we will fact check your article. And if we find it not to be correct, then we will take it off of the Wikipedia site. Well, I found when I try this with my students that they're overwhelmed by people entering articles, and they only have maybe 700 fact checkers, and they're getting 5,000 to 1,000,000 articles per day submitted. So your misinformation might stay on the site for a couple of weeks before it's pulled down. So please, teachers, never let your students enter Wikipedia as one of their sources on a research paper or research project. It is good for students to get an overview of their topic, which would lead them to do better searches on Google by using keywords that they take from a general article that we hope is true on Wikipedia. So we can't depend on everything that Wikipedia says to be true. They're just written by people like you and I. So keep that in mind if you are a teacher. So that is some of the good and some of the bad from Wikipedia. So anyone can author an article on Wikipedia, and it's going to show up in the top 10 list of every Google search. And they may say that fact checkers are going to check it, but that will take a long time. So please tell your students not to cite it on a professional or a school paper. And that's why you see the thumbs down. Some of Google's good points are that the Google suite of applications include Gmail or Google Mail, and most of y'all have Gmail. And you might not know that that gives you access to all the Google applications. If you have a Gmail account, whether you know it or not, you have access to a Google Drive where you can share your documents to other people's emails and let them help you work on a document or just share information with you. Sometimes documents are too big to be emailed, and you can share them through a Google Drive document and just share them with the other person so that they don't have to be emailed. It is a good place to store all your documents because it's accessible from all your devices as long as you're logged into your Gmail. It's free, so they're free applications, and it has Google Slides, like PowerPoint. It has Google Documents, like Microsoft Word. It has Google Hangouts, like Skype or Zoom. It has Google Forms that can be turned into surveys if you need to survey your chapter to find out information to use, like on your chapter needs assessment. And it has many, many other applications. It is kind of like owning the whole Microsoft suite of applications. And you know how costly that is. Some of the other good points about Google are that if you understand that the top 10 or so on a search are paid for, and you know that Wikipedia is not a good source, you can go down the list until you see a familiar web address that is related to the topic of your search. We tell our students to only use .org sites, .gov sites, or .edu in the web address because they are the most credible resources for professional papers. Those are extensions on the www address. .com and .net stand for commercial and network. Those and other odd extensions you need to be cautious about even clicking on, because that information, if it's commercial, is going to be biased. But when you use .org or .gov, you're using organizations information, government information, and EDU stands for educational information, higher education. So those are usually very credible resources. And that is good information to have when you look at a list of results that's 50 items long, right? So now you know the good and the bad and the ugly about Google. It's an excellent search engine as long as you know the pitfalls. I have given this slideshow to the virtual conference committee so that it can be accessible by you, and this video presentation will be accessible to you also. My contact information is basically shankles08@gmail.com. And remember that you can contact me and ask more questions. I thank you for your time, and I hope that you've had a wonderful conference.